The space station called Quiet Sorrow floated in the darkness between stars. It was an old station, built long ago for miners and traders. Now it was home to the unwanted, the forgotten, the species that the galaxy had left behind. Miru pressed her face against the cold glass of the viewport. She was young, maybe 20 cycles old, with soft gray fur that had lost its shine. Her ears, tall and pointed like all Falari, lay flat against her head. This was a sign of sadness among her people. These days, all Falari ears lay flat. Outside the window, cargo ships moved slowly past. Big ones, small ones. Ships from 100 different worlds, carrying food and medicine and machines. None of them stopped at Quiet Sorrow unless they had to. Why would they? There was nothing here worth taking. Nothing here worth seeing. Just the broken ones. Miru remembered the stories her grandmother used to tell. Long ago, the Falari had been hunters. Great hunters. They had lived on a world of endless forests and tall grass. Their eyes could see in perfect darkness. Their claws could cut through bone. They could move without making a sound, like shadows given life. But that was before the Galactic Collective found them. The Collective was not cruel. That was the worst part. They did not hurt the Falari or take their world by force. They simply looked at them with their scanners and their tests, and they said one word that destroyed everything: obsolete. What good were hunters in an age when machines grew food in factories? What good were claws when every door and wall was made of metal that no claw could scratch? What good was stealth when sensors could hear a heartbeat from 100 steps away? The Falari had no answer, so they became refugees. They spread across the galaxy, looking for work, looking for purpose. But everywhere they went, the answer was the same. We don't need hunters. We don't need your kind. Miru had been born on this station. She had never seen her homeworld. She had never run through tall grass or climbed the great trees her grandmother described. All she knew was metal walls and recycled air and the heavy weight of shame that every Falari carried. She was thinking about these things when the human ship arrived. It was not a beautiful ship. The name painted on its side said Dawn's Promise, but the paint was old and cracked. The hull had patches where it had been repaired many times. It looked tired, like it had traveled too far and seen too much. But it was a human ship, and that made people pay attention. Humans were strange. Everyone in the galaxy agreed on this. They came from a small world called Earth, and they had only been traveling among the stars for a few hundred years. This was nothing compared to species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. But somehow, humans had spread everywhere. They traded with everyone. They made friends with species that hated each other. They went to places that others said were too dangerous or too far. Nobody quite understood how they did it. Humans were not strong. They were not fast. They had no claws, no armor, no special powers. Yet somehow, they kept surviving. They kept growing. They kept surprising everyone. Miru watched the ship dock at the station. She watched the doors open. And she saw him. Park Doan was not a tall man. He was not handsome in the way that entertainment shows said humans should be handsome. His face had lines from too much worry and too much sun. His hands were rough and covered with small scars. His hair was going gray at the edges. But his eyes were kind. That was the first thing Miru noticed. In a galaxy full of people who looked at Falari with pity or disgust, this human looked at her like she was a person. He walked through the station slowly, looking at everything, looking at everyone. His first officer walked beside him, a human woman named Yuna with sharp eyes and black hair pulled back tight. She carried a datapad and made notes as they walked. Miru did not mean to follow them, but she did. She stayed in the shadows, moving quietly the way all Falari moved, watching these strange humans explore her dying station. They stopped at a food distribution center where Falari lined up for their daily meals. They stopped at a medical bay where old Falari lay in beds, waiting for the end. They stopped at a childcare center where young Falari played with broken toys, not yet understanding that the galaxy had no place for them. Finally, Dawn stopped walking. He turned around slowly, and he looked directly at the shadow where Miru was hiding. She froze. No one ever noticed her when she did not want to be noticed. It was the one gift her people still had. But this human saw her. Dawn smiled. It was a small smile, gentle and sad at the same time. He walked toward her, and Miru found that she could not run. She did not want to run. He stopped a few steps away, close enough to talk, far enough to not seem threatening. Miru spoke first, because the silence was too heavy. Her voice came out rough and quiet, like she had forgotten how to use it. She told him that she was looking for work. She told him that she would do anything. Clean ships, carry boxes, anything at all. Then she told him the truth that every Falari knew in their bones. She said that she could not do anything useful. She said that her people could not hunt anymore. She said that they were worthless, good for nothing, a burden on a galaxy that had no need for them. She expected him to nod sadly and walk away. That was what everyone did. But Dawn did not walk away. He looked at her for a long moment. His kind eyes seemed to see something that she could not see, something hidden deep inside her, buried under years of shame and hopelessness. Then he spoke. His voice was calm and warm, like a fire on a cold night. He said that he had been looking for people like her. He said that his ship had room for Falari who wanted something more than waiting to die. He said that he could not promise comfort or safety or easy work, but he could promise something else. He could show her who she could be. Miru did not understand what he meant, but for the first time in years, she felt something stir in her chest. Something that might have been hope. She said yes, and everything changed. The Dawn's promise was not a large ship. It had been built for cargo, not passengers. The hallways were narrow. The rooms were small. The air always smelled a little bit like engine oil and old coffee. But to Miru, it felt like freedom. She was not the only Falari aboard. Captain Dawn had been busy. Over the past year, he had visited many stations like Quiet Sorrow. He had found Falari who still had some fight left in them. Some hope, some hunger for something better. There were 12 of them now. Taiho was the youngest, barely 16 cycles old. He was curious about everything, always asking questions, always taking things apart to see how they worked. His fur was orange with white patches, and his eyes were bright with intelligence. Grandmother Bora was the oldest. She had lived for 90 cycles, and she remembered the old world. She remembered hunting in the forests. She remembered what it felt like to be proud. Her fur was silver white now, and she walked slowly, but her mind was sharp as a knife. Jia and Woon were siblings, twins who moved like one person split into two bodies. They finished each other's sentences. They knew what the other was thinking without speaking. In the old days, they would have been legendary hunters. There were others too. Quiet Hannah, who rarely spoke but noticed everything. Strong Junho, whose muscles remembered what his mind had forgotten. Clever Somi, who could solve puzzles that made computers give up. Dohan gathered them all in the cargo bay on their first day of travel. Eunice stood beside him, her datapad ready. The Falari sat on crates and boxes, their ears flat, their tails still. They did not know what to expect. Dohan began by asking them a question. He asked them what they knew about humans. The Falari looked at each other. Taiho spoke up first. He said that humans were weak, soft. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. By all logic, They should have died out long ago on their dangerous little planet. Doan nodded. He said that Taiho was correct. Humans were all of those things. Then he asked another question. He asked how humans were still alive. Nobody answered. It was a mystery that many species had wondered about. Daohan smiled and turned to Yuna. She pressed a button on her datapad, and suddenly the cargo bay was filled with light. Holographic images appeared in the air. Images of a blue and green world. Images of ancient humans, thin and small, running across open grassland. Dohan began to teach. He told them about Earth, about the predators that hunted his ancestors. Lions with massive jaws. Wolves that worked in packs. Bears that could kill with one blow. Snakes with poison that stopped the heart. Humans had none of these weapons. They could not run faster than a lion. They could not fight stronger than a bear. They could not hide better than a snake. So they learned a different way to hunt. Dohan showed them images of ancient humans tracking animals. Not chasing them. Not fighting them. Just following. Walking slowly, steadily, for hours. For days. For weeks. He explained that humans could do something that almost no other animal on Earth could do. They could sweat. They could cool their bodies while moving. They could walk forever without overheating. So they followed their prey. They walked and walked and walked. The animals would run away, but then they would have to stop and rest. And the humans would keep coming. Always coming. Never stopping. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion. And then the humans would eat. This was called persistence hunting. It did not require strength or speed or claws. It required patience. It required observation. It required the will to never give up. The Falari listened in silence. They had never heard this story before. Dawn continued. He told them about tools. About how humans took rocks and sticks and bones and made them into weapons. Not because humans were natural fighters, but because they were natural thinkers. They saw problems and found solutions. He told them about traps. About how humans would study their prey, learn its habits, predict where it would go. Then they would wait, patient, silent, and when the moment was right, they would strike. He told them about fire, about how humans took something dangerous and made it useful, how they cooked food to make it safer, how they used light to push back the darkness. Then Dohan stopped the holographic display. The images faded. He looked at the Falari with serious eyes. He said that hunting was not about killing. Killing was easy. Any fool with a weapon could kill. Hunting was about something deeper. It was about understanding, adapting, finding a way when there seemed to be no way. He said that the Falari had not lost their ability to hunt. They had just forgotten what hunting really meant. Grandmother Bora spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft but steady. She asked what Dohan wanted them to do. Dohan smiled again. He said that he wanted to teach them. He wanted to show them how to use their gifts in new ways. He wanted to help them become something the galaxy had never seen before. He said it would not be easy. He said it would take time and hard work. He said some of them might fail, and that was okay. But for those who succeeded, everything would change. He asked if they were willing to try. The cargo bay was silent for a long moment. The Falari looked at each other. They looked at this strange human who spoke of ancient hunting and refused to give up on them. Taiho stood up first. His tail was still nervous, but his voice was strong. He said he would try. One by one, the others stood. Grandmother Bora, Jia and Wu, Hana and Junho and Somi. All of them. Miru was the last to stand. She looked at Dawn, and she saw something in his eyes that she did not understand yet. It was faith, belief, not in some distant god or some grand plan. the belief in her, in all of them. She said she would try. Doan nodded. He said that was all he asked. The training began the next day, and nothing was ever the same. Weeks turned into months. The Dawn's promise traveled from system to system, picking up cargo, making deliveries. But the real work happened between the stars. Every day, the Falari trained. Every day, they learned. And slowly, they began to change. Grandmother Bora discovered her gift first. Yuna took her to a trading station where merchants sold goods from across the galaxy. The old Falari watched the traders argue and bargain. She watched their faces, their hands, the tiny movements of their eyes and ears. After an hour, she told Yuna which merchants were lying, which ones were telling the truth, which ones were scared, and which ones were confident. She could read them like books written in a language only she understood. Yuna tested her, again and again. Grandmother Bora was right every time. It made sense when they thought about it. The Falari had hunted in the old days. They had watched their prey for tiny signs of weakness. A limp, a moment of distraction, a flash of fear. These were the things that meant life or death in the hunt. Grandmother Bora still had those skills. She had just needed a new kind of prey. Duhan made her the ship's trade ambassador. Within a month, she was getting prices that made other merchants weep. She could sense when someone was desperate to sell. She could tell when a buyer was willing to pay more. She found the weak points in every negotiation and pressed them with gentle, patient pressure. The other merchants called her the Silver Ghost. They learned to fear her kind smile. Jia and Wung found their calling in the darkness of space. Duhan took them to a debris field, the wreckage of an old battle from a war that everyone had forgotten. Broken ships floated in the void, full of valuable cargo that nobody could reach. The debris was too thick. The pieces moved too fast. Regular salvage crews could not work in such chaos. But Jia and Wung were not regular. They moved through the debris like fish through water. Their bodies twisted and turned in ways that seemed impossible. They knew where each piece of wreckage would be before it got there. They communicated without words, their twin bond guiding them through the maze. In 1 hour, they recovered cargo that other crews had tried to reach for years. The twins became the ship's salvage team. They went into places that others called suicide. They came back with treasures that others called impossible. And they did it with a grace that made hardened spacers stare in wonder. Taiho's awakening came more slowly. He struggled at first. He could not find his place. He was too young for trading and too small for salvage. He began to think that maybe he was the one Falari who truly was worthless. Then the engine broke. It happened in deep space, far from any station. Something went wrong in the power core. The human engineers ran tests and checks, but they could not find the problem. The ship drifted in the darkness, and everyone began to worry. Taiho sat in the engine room, just listening. He had always been curious about machines. He liked the way they hummed and clicked. He liked trying to understand how all the pieces worked together. As he sat there, he heard something. A tiny sound. A rhythm that was slightly wrong. It was like a heartbeat that skipped every few beats. So small that the sensors could not detect it. So quiet that no one else could hear it. He followed the sound. He crawled through narrow spaces and climbed over hot pipes. He tracked the wrong rhythm like his ancestors had tracked prey through forest. And he found it. A tiny crack in a cooling unit. So small that it was almost invisible. But it was causing the whole system to fail. The engineers fixed the crack in minutes. The ship came back to life. And everyone stared at the young Falari who had saved them all. Yuna said something that changed Taiho forever. She told him that his ancestors tracked prey through forests. Now he could track problems through machines. He could hunt malfunctions. He could find the weak points that made systems fail. Tai-Ho became obsessed with machines after that. He studied every system on the ship. He learned how everything connected. Within months, he could diagnose engine problems by sound alone. He could feel when something was about to break before it happened. The engineers started calling him the ship whisperer. They meant it as a joke at first, but soon they meant it with respect. One by one, each Filari found their gift. Quiet Hana became a scout, seeing patterns in sensor data that computers missed. Strong Junho became a bodyguard, his instincts for danger sharper than any alarm system. Clever Somi became a codebreaker, hunting secrets through walls of encryption. But Miru struggled. She tried trading, but she was not patient enough for grandmother Bora's slow games. She tried salvage, but she did not have the twins' perfect coordination. She tried engineering, but machines did not speak to her the way they spoke to Teho Dod. She began to despair. Maybe she really was worthless. Maybe she was the one Filari who had no gift to find. Then one night, Dohan called her to the bridge. It was late. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew was sleeping. Only the soft hum of the engines broke the silence. Dohan stood at the main viewport, looking out at the stars. A navigation display floated beside him, showing trade routes and patrol patterns and the movements of 1,000 ships across a dozen systems. He asked Miru what she saw. She looked at the display. She saw stars, trade routes, patrol patterns. She said so. Duhan shook his head. He told her to look deeper, to hunt the pattern. Miru looked again, and something shifted in her mind. She saw the routes, but now she also saw the spaces between them, the gaps where no one traveled, the moments when patrol ships turned away, the invisible paths that connected everything. She saw the whole galaxy like a hunting ground. And suddenly, she understood where the prey would go. She spoke without thinking. She said that a ship leaving from Station 9 in 3 days could reach the hollow nebula without being seen if it took a specific path. She traced the route on the display. It wound through dead zones and blind spots, avoiding every patrol, every sensor, every watching eye. Dohan stared at her. Then he smiled. It was the biggest smile she had ever seen on his face. He told her that she was not a hunter. She was something more. She was a strategist. She could see the patterns that others missed. She could think 10 moves ahead. She could find paths that did not exist until she imagined them. And this gift had been inside her all along. She had just needed someone to help her see it. Miru stood on the bridge as the stars turned slowly outside. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged. The Filari were finding themselves again, and the galaxy was about to notice. The hollow nebula was a cloud of dust and gas that stretched across light years. Ships disappeared inside it. Signals got lost. Sensors went blind. It was the perfect place for pirates to hide. The Dawn's Promise had to cross the edge of the nebula to reach its next delivery point. Dohan knew the risks. He had planned the route carefully, using Miru's gift to find the safest path. But pirates were not always predictable. They came out of the dust like ghosts. 3 ships, fast and deadly. Their hulls were painted black to blend with the darkness. Their weapons were military grade, stolen or bought from corrupt soldiers. They had been hunting cargo ships in this region for months. No one had ever stopped them. Alarms screamed through the Dawn's Promise. Red lights flashed in every corridor. The crew scrambled to their stations, fear making their movements quick and clumsy. On the bridge, Yuna called out the enemy positions. 3 ships, coming fast. Weapons charging. They would be in firing range within minutes. The crew looked to Dawn. He was the captain. He was supposed to give orders. He was supposed to save them. But Dawn did something that nobody expected. He turned to Miru, and he said 4 words that changed everything. He said that Miru had command. The bridge went silent. The Falari stared at him. Miru stared at him. Even Yuna looked surprised. Dawn spoke calmly. He said that he had been training Miru for this moment. He said that her gift was strategy. She could see patterns that others missed. She could find victory in situations that looked hopeless. He asked her if she trusted herself. Miru's heart was pounding so hard, she could feel it in her ears. Her instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to let someone else take responsibility. She was just a Falari, just one of the worthless ones. How could she command a ship in battle? But then she remembered what Dawn had taught her. Hunting was not about strength or speed. It was about patience, observation, adaptation. She looked at the tactical display. She looked at the enemy ships. And she began to hunt. Her voice came out steady, stronger than she expected. She started giving orders. She told Jia and Wung to go to Section 7. It was the weakest part of the hull. The pirates would board there because it looked like an easy entry point. But the twins would be waiting. She told Taiho to cut power to all non-essential systems. Make the ship look dead. Make it look like their engines had failed. The pirates would think they had won before the fight even started. She told Grandmother Bora to open a communication channel. Tell the pirates that they surrendered. Beg for mercy. Make them believe it completely. Grandmother Bora smiled a cold smile. She understood. She told Junho to gather the other Falari and wait in the darkness near Section 7. When the pirates came through, they would face hunters in the shadows. She told Hana to watch the sensors. Track every movement. Tell Miru the moment anything changed. Then she waited. The dawn's promise went dark. Emergency lights painted the corridors in dim red. The engines fell silent. To anyone watching from outside, the ship looked dead. Grandmother Bora's voice came over the communication channel. It was perfect, weak, trembling, full of fear. She begged the pirates to spare them. She said they would give up all their cargo. She said they would not resist. The pirates laughed. They sent a message back saying they would take the cargo and the crew. Falari slaves sold well in certain markets. Miru felt anger burn in her chest, but she pushed it down. Anger was not useful yet. The pirate ships came closer. They scanned the Dawn's promise and found nothing unusual. Just a dead ship full of helpless refugees. One ship moved into dock. The others stayed back, watching for any tricks. Miru tracked their positions in her mind. She saw the pattern forming. The moment approaching. The pirate ship locked onto Section 7. The docking seal hissed and connected. Miru heard the sound of metal cutting as the pirates broke through. She waited. Hana's voice came through the communicator. 12 pirates were boarding. They had weapons. They were moving slowly, confidently. They expected no resistance. Miru spoke one word. Now, the ship came alive. Taiho brought the engines back online in a burst of power that made the pirate docking clamps scream with stress. At the same time, he sent a surge through the connection into the pirate ship's systems. Their computers crashed. Their weapons went offline. Their lights went out. In the darkness of Section 7, the Falari struck. Wung came from above, dropping from a ventilation shaft. Jia came from below, crawling through a maintenance tunnel. They moved in perfect harmony, 2 halves of the same hunter. Their claws could not cut modern armor, but they did not need to. They targeted weak points, joints, sensors, air supplies. Pirates screamed in the darkness. They fired their weapons at shadows that were not there. The Falari flowed around them like water around rocks, always moving, never where the enemy expected. Junho charged into the chaos like a force of nature. He could not break the pirates' armor, but he could grab them and throw them. He tossed armored soldiers into walls and ceilings. The impact stunned them long enough for others to finish the job. In minutes, it was over. 12 pirates lay unconscious on the floor, bound with emergency cables. But Miru was not finished. She ordered Taiho to use the connection between the ships, to send a signal through the crashed systems, to make the pirate ship's beacon broadcast a distress call. The other 2 pirate ships heard the call. They saw their partner vessel dark and silent, attached to what they thought was a dead cargo ship. They had to investigate. They had to help their crew. They moved in closer. That was when Miru sprung the second trap. The Dawn's Promise had no real weapons. It was just a cargo ship. But it had engines. Powerful engines that Taiho had been modifying for months. Miru ordered a full engine burn. The ship lurched forward, dragging the attached pirate vessel with it. The sudden acceleration threw the other 2 pirate ships off course as they tried to dodge. Then Miru ordered Taiho to release the docking clamps. The captured pirate ship spun away, its crew unconscious, its systems destroyed. It crashed into one of the other pirate vessels. Metal screamed against metal. Both ships tumbled through space, tangled together. The third pirate ship tried to run. But Miru had planned for that too. She had positioned the Dawn's Promise perfectly. The pirate had nowhere to go except deeper into the nebula, where its damaged sensors would leave it blind. It was over. Miru stood on the bridge, breathing hard. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. She had just commanded a battle. She had just defeated 3 pirate ships with a cargo vessel and 12 Falari. Dohan walked up beside her. He put his hand on her shoulder. His touch was warm and steady. He told her that she had done well. He told her that he was proud. Miru felt tears in her eyes. She blinked them away. An hour later, the Galactic Patrol arrived. They had received the distress signal from the pirate ship. They expected to find wreckage and bodies. Instead, they found the Dawn's Promise undamaged. They found 3 pirate crews, bound and unconscious. They found a cargo ship full of Falari who had just done the impossible. The patrol commander demanded to know how this had happened. Dohan just smiled and pointed at Miru. He said that she was Falari. He said that she hunted. The patrol commander did not understand. But she would. Soon, everyone would. The galaxy was about to learn what the Falari could really do. Word spread at first. It was just whispers. A cargo ship fought off pirates. No, it was 3 pirate ships. No, it was done by Falari. Impossible. Everyone knew the Falari were useless. But the whispers grew louder. Patrol officers told their friends. Merchants told their partners. News reporters dug into the story and found something they could not explain. The Falari of the Dawn's Promise had done something that trained military crews could not do. They had won without weapons. They had hunted without claws. They had found a way when there was no way. The story reached the stations where Falari lived. Quiet Sorrow, Greyhaven, Last Hope, all the places where the broken ones waited to die. Falar, I gathered around screens and speakers, listening to the story. They heard about Miru, the strategist who saw patterns in chaos. They heard about Grandmother Bora, the negotiator who could read any face. They heard about Gia and Womb, the salvage artists who danced through debris. They heard about Taiho, the engineer who listened to machines. They heard about a human captain who had looked at them and seen something they could not see in themselves. For the first time in generations, Falari ears began to rise. More humans came forward. Friends of Doan, captains and teachers who believed what he believed. They went to the stations. They found Falari who still had some spark inside them. They began to teach. 6 months after the battle in the Hollow Nebula, Something remarkable happened. Miru stood before the Galactic Council. The great hall stretched around her, filled with representatives from 1,000 worlds. Species that had ruled the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Species that had dismissed the Falari as worthless for generations. Behind Miru stood 300 Falari. They wore simple clothes, but they stood straight and proud. Their ears were high. Their eyes were bright. They were not refugees anymore. They were not the broken ones. They were specialists. The council had called this meeting to discuss the Falari situation. For years, they had debated what to do with this obsolete species. Some wanted to give them a reservation, a small corner of space where they could live out their days in peace. Others wanted to simply ignore them until they faded away. But Miru had asked to speak first. And something in her request made the council curious. She walked to the center of the hall. Her footsteps echoed in the silence. 300 Falari stood behind her. 300 more watching on screens across the galaxy. Miru spoke clearly. Her voice did not shake. She had learned to be strong. She said that the council had declared her people obsolete many years ago. They said the Falari had no purpose in the modern galaxy. They said her people could not hunt anymore. She paused. The silence stretched on, then she smiled. It was not a gentle smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had found her prey. She said that the council was wrong. She explained what the Falari had become. She talked about negotiators who could sense lies before they were spoken. She talked about salvage experts who could recover cargo from places no one else could reach. She talked about engineers who could heal machines with their hands and ears. She talked about strategists who could see paths through impossible situations. She said that the Falari did not hunt meat anymore. That was the old way. The galaxy had moved beyond that, and so had her people. Now they hunted problems. They hunted inefficiencies. They hunted threats before they became disasters. They hunted opportunities that others could not see. She said they were very, very good at it. The council stared at her. Some with shock. Some with doubt. Some with the beginning of respect. Miru asked for one thing. She asked the council to establish the Falari Specialist Course, an official organization that would train and certify Falari for work across the galaxy. Not charity. Not handouts. Real work. Real purpose. The debate was short. The evidence was too strong to ignore. Ships and stations across the galaxy were already requesting Falari workers. The demand was growing faster than anyone expected. The council voted. The result was unanimous. The Falari Specialist Course was born. After the vote, there was celebration. Falari hugged each other and cried. Humans cheered and laughed. Species that had never paid attention to the Falari before now looked at them with new eyes. But Miru slipped away from the crowd. She needed quiet. She needed to think. She found Doan on an observation deck near the edge of the council station. He stood alone, looking out at the stars. His hands were clasped behind his back. His face was peaceful. Miru walked up beside him. They stood in silence for a long time. Finally, she asked the question that had been burning in her heart since the day they met. She asked why. Why had he helped them? Why had he spent years of his life saving a species that everyone else had abandoned? Doan was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke softly. He told her a story. He said that long ago, when humans first reached the stars, they met other species. Older species. Stronger species. Species with technology that made human achievements look like children's toys. Those species looked at humans and saw nothing special. They said humans were too weak, too slow, too soft. They said humans would never amount to anything in a galaxy full of superior beings. But someone had believed in them. A species called the Mentori, long gone now, had seen something in humanity that others missed. They had taught humans, helped them, showed them who they could become. Duhan said that every species deserved that chance. Every species deserved someone who believed in them when no one else would. He turned to look at Miru. His kind eyes were bright with emotion. He said that she had proven him right. All of them had. The Falari were not worthless. They had never been worthless. They had just been lost. They had just needed someone to show them the way home. Miru felt tears running down her fur. She did not try to stop them. She thanked him. The words felt small compared to what she felt, but they were all she had. Doan smiled. He said that thanks were not necessary. Seeing her stand before the council, proud and strong, was all the thanks he would ever need. They stood together and watched the stars. Outside the observation window, Falari ships were launching. Small ships at first. Transport vessels and cargo haulers crewed by the new generation. They spread out into the darkness, heading to stations and colonies and worlds that needed their skills. More would follow. Thousands more. Millions more. The Falari would scatter across the galaxy, and everywhere they went, they would prove that obsolete was just a word. A word that meant nothing when faced with courage and will and refusal to give up. Miru thought about the young Falari who would come after her. The ones who would be born into a galaxy that respected their people. They would never know the shame she had felt. They would never lie awake at night, wondering if they deserved to exist. That was the greatest gift of all. She looked at Dulhan one more time. This strange, kind human who had changed everything. Who had seen hunters when everyone else saw failures. She promised herself that she would do the same for others. Someday, somewhere she would find a species that the galaxy had abandoned. And she would show them who they could be. The hunt had only begun. But now, for the first time, the Falari knew they would never hunt alone.